Right there is the jetty to the port. You can see it extends all the way out, and that's the channel for the cruise ships and the other ships to come in. When we were here about a year ago, when they finished this renourishment, the sand went out to the beginning of the jetty, and we could see that most of it has eroded away at the north end. This is a natural process exacerbated by the jetty, because the jetty holds the sand north. Where that building is, they have a 1/4 mile wide beach there, because all of our sand gets held up there. So all of our sand in South Broward is held up there. So if you look at an aerial from Google Maps, you'll see they have a 1/4 mile wide beach, literally goes out to the end of the jetty, and we have nothing here because they're holding our sand. So the Corps of Engineers built dunes just north of here. You see where the blue tents are? You see the mound? The mound? That mound there is where the Corps of Engineers stopped. And they said, we're not doing the rest of the park. So the park manager said, we need the rest of the park, otherwise the water's going to be up here soon. And it was here. It was actually here at one time. The ocean was here. So the park manager came to us and said, we need you to plant dunes again to preserve the beach. Otherwise, it'll all be gone. By the way, all these dunes here are less than a year old. They were just planted, and we'll talk about them as we walk. Let's walk up this way. So when the Corps of Engineers builds their dunes, they build a mound. We do it at grade. The reason we do it at grade, first you can see there's already height built up on its own because the COs capture the sand. The root system grows as the sand accumulates.
So what's the reason why they would build it up if it's more effort, if this is more effective?
I always tell them they don't have to do that, because in 5 years, my dune will be as high as their dune and be more stable because I have a vast root system. If we were to dig down in front of this dune, 6 feet down and 20 feet out, we would find roots. Same thing on there, but look at the quality of their plants compared to the quality of my plants. And that's because we planted them right. And when I work with you guys, you're going to plant them right. We're not going to do this. We're going to do this. So this was done by the Miami Dolphins a year ago. So a corporate sponsor did this one. They will come back again this year and do some more planting in here. We always start with the coats because they build the dune and hold the dune in place. They're the most important plant here. We planted these and we did not water them once. This one all the way up to the Corps of Engineer project was done a year ago. And this was done in the memory of Jason Jenkins, who was the general manager of the Dolphins, who died suddenly. No irrigation whatsoever. They were on their own. And we came out with 20 or 30 people, and we planted a dune in my son's memory. Never did I think that I would be doing this in my son's memory. Never. Provide protection for the back area, which we'll go in a moment. But I've done several in the memory of people, and I always found it interesting when I would do it, because people would invite me to attend. But more importantly, they would choose my venue as a mechanism to give back or remember somebody. But never did I think that I would do this. Never. I get to come back and see my son daily.
Oh.
A living memory. That's my son.
Yes.
The park manager says this is where I need it. She has locations already picked out for potential projects. We have a couple other corporate partners that are coming in that have already gotten their spaces, but there is plenty of beach to plant. Once again, based on need, what was happening is the sand was all blowing into there and covering up the sidewalk. So the park manager said to me, I need to keep the sand from blowing on there. So the sand is now being captured in here instead of blowing on the sidewalk. In addition to the coats, we're going to look at another project, which is the mangroves. And I don't have specific sites for those yet, because there's some work to be done in the park, but we are growing 1,000 mangroves right now as we speak. And we're going to go to the greenhouse. And the reason I want to take you to the greenhouse is the goal here is to grow our own plants, so we don't have to rely on the nurseries to supply us at their mercy, at their dollar, whatever it is. We can have all the seeds we need right here in the park. The park has a greenhouse that's been there for 15, 20 years. And when I came back into the park, I said to the manager, what are you going to do with it? She says, well, we really like to utilize it. I said, be careful what you wish for. So we went out and applied for this very large grant Community Foundation grant, which will encompass the greenhouse to refurbish it, to make it operational, and will also include all these different projects that we're doing. The question is how much now? It's not even if, it's how much will they give us? We asked for $75,000, and that's how much we're going to need to accomplish what we want to accomplish within a reasonable amount of time. I know that you're going to ask me what do I expect from you guys. Really, I'm just looking for you guys to do work. If you want to fund, you want to adopt a section of Dune, you're more than welcome to do that, because I don't know if the $75,000 will get us all the way through. But there's no request for monetary donations. I just need people to do the work, to take responsibility for it. The key to this Adopt-a-Dune program is getting these people to come back the next year and actually do the work that we need. It's not major work. It's infill work, removing garbage, maybe getting nasty plants out of there. Sometimes corporate partners come back, FP&L on their 8th year, Humana on their 4th year, and they come back to their dune and actually take care of their dune.
Who reminds them of it?
I do.
Okay.
At the anniversary date, like the DHL people, I'm already telling them, when are you going to set your date, because we have some more work to do. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. You know, it's okay. I don't take it personally. Just a couple things about the park. The park is under attack from the port. The port wants to expand again. They want to take some more of their land here and so forth.
What land do they have?
On the intercoastal.
The other side.
On the intercoastal side, because they're trying to make the port bigger for bigger ships to turn around. And we understand all that. And they have to do proper mitigation if they're going to do that. They have to add back where they're subtracting from the quality of the park. The other thing is, recently, you may have heard, the state of Florida was trying to put pickleball courts and tennis courts and all kinds of stuff in the state parks. And this is not the place to put that. This is supposed to be preserved for nature. This is not supposed to be pickleball courts and tennis courts. This is just not the proper venue for it. So we need to make sure that when the governor decides to try to do this again, there's enough people that say, we don't want it here. We don't want it here. And this is the people's park. This is not their park. It's the state of Florida park. And in their message on their Facebook, it says it's supposed to be preserved for natural purposes, not for natural and recreational, but the two sometimes don't mesh. Pickleball courts and tennis courts and that kind of venue does not work here. So we want to make sure that when it comes around next time, there's a loud voice in support of the park. So we're trying to get support for the park. Ultimately, the park wants to form a Friends of. Most of the parks in the state of Florida have what's called a Friends of. It's a nonprofit entity that helps protect and raise money for the park. The parks don't really have the ability to collect donations. It's a whole process. These Friends of can collect donations to give the park a new bathroom, a new pavilion, whatever they might need, wherever the state shortfalls them in their needs. And the state always uses the parks as the way to cut first. This is the first thing that gets cut. So we want to preserve it because of its recreational. We want to preserve it for its historical. We want to preserve it because it happens to be a really beautiful place, and it's the last coastal barrier natural area left in Broward County. This does not exist anywhere. It's very important, extremely important. So your goal is to help me to do that. And whatever mechanism, whatever extent you want to get involved, we're going to do at least one project. If you want to do more, if you want to do a series, you want to see all the different types of projects, I encourage you to do it. I want to make it successful, and we will, because the level of success is measured by this. This is our measurement of success. I can't give a simpler measurement of success. When a corporate sponsor comes in and says, how do I measure where my dollar goes? There it is, simple enough. Your dune grows, it's doing its job, it's functioning, it looks beautiful. There's your success.
What kind of environment impact
The cruise ships.
Yes.
So the cruise ships have a high impact because just them being there. An effect of their operations causes us to have a problem. I've always said we should have them set up a fund to fund ongoing projects in this park. It's a direct.
Has anybody approached them for that? So no.
It's definitely a no.
Okay.
And I've gotten like up to the door and like something pulls me back every time. Having you show up and everything going, that's 90% of my time. The other 5% is talking to people like this, and the other 5% is doing the project. Projects are fun.
getting to that point is so challenging, and it becomes more and more challenging because we're running out of time. And I'm running out of time. Our goal is to have a continuous dune by 2026. Now, COVID kind of messed that up. We would have been on our goal, the whole beach. I'm not just talking about here, I'm talking about the whole beach. And people looked at me like, you're crazy. And they said, well, someone's got to do it. And I'm going to start the ball rolling. So what we did is we have affiliates, non-profit affiliates. South Florida Audubon is an affiliate of Adopt-a-Dune. Adopt-a-Dune has 8 affiliates. Some in Miami-Dade, some in Palm Beach, 3 or 4 here in Broward. They're the ones who are bringing in volunteers and organizing and getting it. I'm just making the logistics happen. So let's take a quick ride to the greenhouse. Follow me over there, okay?
At one point in time, they did have irrigation systems in here, but none of that's working. These are red mangrove propagules, and they fall off the trees. They look like little green beans, and you can see they're already rooting already. And what we're going to do is we're going to grow them out until they're big enough, like these over here. They have a pretty extensive root system already. These are just growing in water, salt water, by the way. And this is actually, in my opinion, the single most important plant in Florida. Without this plant, Florida would not be Florida, because this is the nursery ground for most of the crabs, the fish, and the birds. They're important not only because of the habitat, but they also protect the coastline. They provide stability to the coastline. If we were to plant these along our coastlines would be stable because this holds the soil in place. It also is what's called a carbon sink. A carbon sink is a thing that holds CO2, and mangroves hold the most CO2 in the planet. If we were to plant thousands and thousands of these, we could offset a lot of the CO2 that we're naturally and unnaturally putting into the air. So our goal, since these plants are readily available in this park, is to grow them, bring kids out, bring adults out. And where we're going to plant is where your son went fishing, in that area. We're not going to go into the intercoastal side. It's too dangerous for us to go on the intercoastal side. There's literally a creek that runs through the middle of the park. We haven't seen it yet. And that area is eroding, not because of climate change, but because boaters are using it to launch. And we want to prevent that from happening by putting these plants in and say, it's protected, you can't go near it, and put them where they need to go, because they're going wherever they want to go. We're growing lots of other plants. All these seeds came from in the park.
How the educational system, college, elementaries, is involving this kind of information. Maybe the schools, the little kids can stay in the park and learn about this?
So the goal is, with the Community Foundation grant, is to engage 40% of the 600 volunteers to engage them to come here and see this, because I think their eyes will open up when they actually see this part of it. Planting is one thing, but seeing stuff to grow and actually growing your own is really important for these kids to see, because they're direct connection. I did something and was positive, and I put it there and it grew. I can't inspire children any better than that, because I see the twinkle in their eyes, the aha moments. To me, that makes a big difference for me, professionally, emotionally, to have impact on children, because ultimately this is their responsibility. And there's been a disengagement over the last couple generations of the environment, and the kids need to understand it's theirs. They're going to have to deal with this. We're going to be long gone by the time all this stuff happens. So anytime we can inspire children to be part of the solution, you're going to hear me use that phrase a lot, be part of the solution. Don't complain, I can't do anything. Here's something you can actually do to have an impact. High impact, measurable impacts. It's always fun to see them come back and plant their own plants, because they have pride in it. And hopefully they come back and see it year after year as they become adults and show their children what they do. These are long-lasting projects. These are not, oh, I feel good about it, and then it all goes away. You'll come back years and years later. I have pictures that I just saw today from 6 years ago, from 10 years ago, projects that I did, and I go back and see them. And I know it was all worth it, because the impact was tremendous. And everybody says, hey, you made a huge difference on our beach and our park, whatever you did. We're going to look at COs. These are COs. These are left over. They're not doing too good. They've been here too long. This is what the plugs look like when we put them into the ground. I've actually been doing experiments here to see if I can get bigger root growth. Let's see what we got here. So you can see the root here is pretty big. When we get them, they're little tiny plugs. They're like this big. So we're trying to get a big root ball so they grow bigger. Remember, I showed you different plant projects that were done with different sizes. I always want to go to the biggest ones just because the result is much better. Do 500 in a day, depending on your physical ability, depending on the weather conditions. I've done 1,000 in a day. It's a heavy load, 1,000, depending on how many people we have.
How many people did you have?
50.
50 people?
Yeah, 50 people can knock out that kind of quantity. A smaller group, maybe 150, 200 plants, it's enough. It's 3 or 4 hours of heavy work. And some groups will come back a second time and a third time to continue their project. So it all depends on how big of a group we get, depends on the time of year that we do it. We want to do it during the cooler months for sure, because we can get a lot more done and it's not such a heavy thing to do. So this is our greenhouse. The intent with the community foundation is to redo the whole irrigation system. I'm not sure how much of it works. We need a timer, we need all kinds of, we're going to need misters. And so we do have people that come here, but they're volunteers. I can't depend on them to come because if they miss 1 or 2 days, everything's dead. So I literally have to come here almost every day. That's why we want an automated irrigation
So
system.
that's the big problem with having somebody here every day is that you can't irrigate it and you'll die.
Okay. At one time, there was $5,000 or $6,000 worth of plants. Just the CO2 alone was $3,000 or $4,000. I can't afford to lose it. We do. We have funding that we've already requested from the community foundation. We have a line item specifically for the greenhouse. And there's a guy in the park that does irrigation, and we'll pay him to do the irrigation. We have the good framework. It's functioning good enough for us to use. It's the irrigation. I think we're going to do some screening replacement, maybe some different shelving because some of the shelving is rotting out. It will all depend on what level they fund us at. So I'd like to try to do something before the end of the year, at least one project.
Yeah,
we could do another one after the first year. The reason I'm saying that is because potentially I have 2 big orders of sea oats that I'm going to be making before the end of the year. So think about time frame, the holidays are coming up and I'm actually gone the first week of December. So I'll work all the way till Christmas and New Year.
So what would that look like? Just one day or several days or?
Let's start with one day.
Okay.
I always like to get one day of success and then we build on the success from there. And get you energized, get you to better understand the process, and then you can talk to other people about bringing them into the fold, kids, relatives, whatever. We can make it a family day if you want to make it a family day. I don't know if Leadership Hollywood wants you to bring it outside your circle.
Absolutely, yeah. They're open to everything.
Then that's up to you. Come up with that plan.
And we actually can invite people from the leadership program so everybody can...
Definitely invite Maria Suarez because she's never actually come to one of my projects, and I think it's really important that she understands what we're doing. Let me just give you some real quick history on dunes in Hollywood. As you know, Central Beach has no dunes. And there's a reason they have no dunes, because the businesses there don't want dunes. They don't want their view obstructed. They're the first to scream when the sand is on the boardwalk and the storm surge is coming down the streets, but they're not willing to do what they need to do, which is to build a dune to keep that storm surge back. So there are people in the Hollywood circles that have been making it difficult for us to build dunes in Hollywood. Even though Hollywood has a dune master plan, they said anywhere but Central Beach. And I said, that's where you need the most. You have the most to lose businesses Broadwalk. The Broadwalk can actually lift up. It's not cemented. There are certain people in Hollywood that have been resistant to me moving forward in Central Beach, and I need as much support as possible because our time is limited. We're not going to have sand much longer, and if we don't do this now, we could be waiting 10 more years for sand, and by then, there may be nothing left. So, time is of the essence. If we're going to do Central Beach Hollywood, we need to get started, and we could do it with these projects, not the county project. The county is planning to build a dune in Hollywood, but excluding
the central.
And I said to the public works director, I said, that's great. Let me and my group do the little tinkering parts where we don't obstruct views and the hotel operator still has his beachfront.
Exactly. So if you do it at grade where it's behind the wall, isn't that not going to obstruct? It'll just barely obstruct.
The county wants to come in and build.
Understand by a...
Yeah, so if we're doing it the way you're saying, which is at the existing grade, then the only thing that's going to be poking up is the CO itself. Eventually, sand will build up, but at the beginning it won't.
So 2 things I want you to look at. An aerial of the port. I want you to look at it.
Okay.
I want you to see how much of an impact. Now, you talked about impact. I would love to go to the port
and I would love to go to all the people in the port and say, you need to get $1 for every container that you ship and put it into a fund to help protect this beach because your business is impacting this beach. That would be an awesome thing to do because it's done in other ports. It's called impact fees, and this is a direct impact. So if they come up with $1 a passenger, $1, and it could be a donation. It doesn't even have to be a mandatory. $1 or environmental impact fund for the port. If in the chamber, you should probably know some of these
So
people.
we're going to be going to the port actually.
Listen, if I was asked out of that port to make $1 donation, I would not even hesitate. And I'm on ships a lot, so I would not hesitate to do it. And what's $1 mean to me? But think about it. There's 3,000 people on a ship, and half of them give $1, and you have 12 ships a week coming through here. It's a substantial amount of money. The question, who would manage that? And what I would do is set it up where the friends of this park would get that donation.